program. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Olympic Region Clean Air Agency meeting for September 14th. Go ahead and do a round of introductions for the record, and then we'll move into our agenda. So I am Jim Cooper from the City of Olympia. Let's see, I'll just go around my screen. Carolyn?
Hi, I'm Carolyn Cox from City of Lacey, subbing for Robin Vasquez today.
Welcome. Greg?
Greg Brother from Jefferson County. Good to see everyone.
Welcome. Randy?
Good morning, everybody. Randy Neville in Mason County.
Great. And Jill?
Jill Warney, Grace Harbor County.
Welcome. Okay, that establishes a quorum, and we'll come back around if any other board members join us.
Joan did join.
Oh, who did I get? Oh, I see Joan. Welcome, Joan. Introduce yourself, please. Oh, you're muted still.
Story of the morning, huh?
Yeah.
Joan Cathy. I'm on the council of the city of Tumwater.
Welcome. Okay, Jeff, well, would you walk us through our staff, please?
Sure. So I'm Jeff Johnston, Executive Director of ORCAA. Also am joined by Debbie Moody, Office Manager, Odell Hadley, Senior Air Monitoring Specialist, Mark Gooden, Engineering Manager, Robert Moody, Compliance Manager, Dan Nelson, our Communications Manager, Chris Kraus, our IT System Admin, is here running the conference room computer in case we have anybody stopping by for the hearing a little bit later in the agenda. Lauren Wybrew, engineer, is here to for something on the agenda, talk us through a rule update. And Rob Weiland, AQS, is listening in as well. And I think that's it. Not seeing anybody else from ORCAA that I missed, so I think that's it.
Okay. And our legal support will be joining us in about a half an hour. So Jeff had something else, and then he'll get here, and we will have an executive session at the end of the meeting just for folks so they know that. Let's see, I see Carolina joined us. Do you want to do a quick introduction and then we'll move to agenda approval?
Sure. Carolina Mejia, Thurston County Commissioner. I'm sorry I was late.
Perfect timing. Good to see you, or good to hear you anyway. Okay, is everyone okay with the agenda as it stands? Any amendments? Hearing none, we have an agenda. Thank you, everyone. Then let's go ahead and go in. We have two chair reports. So I'll have Greg make the finance report, and then Jeff and I will lead a quick discussion around whether we should be in person or hybrid moving forward, or whether we should move to hybrid moving forward and at what point. So Greg, why don't you go ahead and do the finance report?
Sure. I'm going to share my screen. I think everyone had this document from Lynn, who's not with us today. I'll just walk through it really quick. The budget ending fiscal year.
Greg, we just see like an open the appointment for this meeting and your desktop.
Sorry. Let me stop my share and try one more time. There we go. Thank you. Better?
There you go. Yep.
Okay. Sorry. So the budget and expenditures for fiscal year ending 2022, it was a pretty good year. Unfortunately, one of the reasons that the budget is doing so well, or did so well, was the penalties, which were budgeted at 55K, and you see we're at 217, and I believe that's from principally one operator, according to Jeff, and we're going to have some more penalties in 2023, which are pretty significant as well. Other things on here of note, and we can always take questions, of course, too, are the let's see, sorry, I had it and then I lost it. Wood smoke reduction grants, is just, it will get paid out. It's a 2-year grant, and it just kind of was a little bit slow. And then the building and where's the building?
Down at the bottom.
Oh, building rental income is stable, and even better news is down below that I'll get to in just a minute. And so the big news is that the 209,000 from the contingency was not needed this year, so that is great. And then also just point out this little box on the side here shows a breakdown of where revenues come from. You see 51% from fees, etc. So if there's any questions there, I'll pause briefly. Before going into revenues, and I'll start again with this little box where we can see 88% goes to payroll, which is, as we know, the primary expenditure that we have. Other big expenditures or expenditures of note, busted copier. So there's a little $10,000 over budget there. There wasn't a vehicle purchase that was budgeted for. That helped a little bit. And then you see here under principal interest for the office building, we were double billed last year, hence that, nearly $90,000. So we weren't, I guess the city of Lacey or Olympia refinanced without involving us in the conversation. So no payment this year, but we do, as you see here.
Thurston County, just to be clear.
Oh, sorry, Thurston County, yes. We do have, we're paying off the building. I'm gonna go down here, paying off the building on December 1st with the last payment, and we'll be free and clear. So we might talk about a celebration coming later. Sorry, I'm probably giving you all tremors moving around so fast. And I think that was up. We're doing very healthy budget at the end of 22 in June, and we're going to have another finance meeting in October to go over. Oh, I already forgot. What are we going over in October?
We're going over the first quarter of fiscal year 23 budget.
So we will have a finance report in the next meeting as well. And that's the report, unless there's any questions.
Questions for Greg? Thank you, Greg. That was helpful. Thanks for leading the committee.
My pleasure.
Okay, so Jeff and I wanted to just talk for a few minutes and see what folks' leanings are around coming in person to a meeting and trying to hope to get a few folks together in the meeting room. But Jeff, why don't you tell us what you're thinking?
Sure. So thanks, Jim. We are the ORCAA conference room is ready to host, ready to welcome folks back. I know it's been 2.5, going on 3 years since ORCAA has hosted a board meeting. But for those that are nearby, or well, for anybody, I would like to kind of limit it probably to 10 or so in the room. But we've got technology. We purchased an OWL, so one of the cameras, 360 cameras that should make the hybrid meeting go pretty smoothly. And so we'd be happy to host. I know that there's definitely some benefits to being virtual, being able to stack your meetings right next to each other, not have to worry about driving over to West Side Olympia for the meetings. But there's also some benefit to all being together, or at least some of us being together in the room, sitting around a table. Again, we're ready to do that in October. I was toying with the idea of doing that this month, but decided to do it one more month fully virtual. But so we're ready to do it in October. But I guess Jim and I talked last week, it'd be helpful to kind of get a sense for what are people's interest, people interested in coming back, and so that we can plan accordingly.
Yeah, so do you think if you're on here, do you think you would come in person in October? And not, no, it's not, I don't think there's a lot of pressure right now, but just, if you are, we want to make sure we have the room set for the right number of people. The other thing Jeff and I talked about is because it's unpredictable, we used to have laptops sitting there waiting for us, and this time, for going forward, if you need that support and you come in person, we'd like to have you request it, because quite a few of us have our own devices or other ways to have access to the packet, and we don't need the staff necessarily going around and opening all those windows for us, especially if they don't know how many people are going to be there. So
right,
those are the two items, right?
Yes, exactly. Thanks, Jim. Yeah, so we do have those Chromebooks still that I guess the board used previously, and those could still be available. But I think most folks probably have their own device, whether it's a laptop or tablet or something, and we have a wireless here that you could get on to open up the documents on your device. So so it'd be helpful to know if specifically if you are going to be here, and then if you're going to need one of the Chromebooks, we'll make sure that we've got it set up for you.
Cool. Well, so I'll plan on being there, and I don't need a Chromebook, just to put that in there. And if anyone else knows now, let Jeff know.
I'm good either way, but I would have my own device. Kind of just depends on scheduling, how tight it gets.
Okay. Yeah. So what's a good, Jeff, like letting people, if people let you know by Monday before, is that okay, or do you need it before?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, because we will be having at least a few of us here in the room. So, so yeah, if you could let me know. So the next meeting is on the 12th. So yeah, let Debbie and I know. Yeah, I mean, so Debbie will be sending out the board packet as usual on Friday the 7th. And so maybe if you could just respond to that email and say to Debbie, let her and I know that if you're planning on being here in the building.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks. That's a great idea. Just have Debbie put that in the note. Thank you, Debbie.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what Jeff and I talked about is we'll kind of keep the room capacity to 10, just to kind of make sure we're monitoring this fall's pandemic situation, and if it seems to stay stable, we can look at upping the numbers, and then are talking about either the last meeting or the first meeting of the year next year, trying to have everyone come together just so we can all see each other and just celebrate our work. So we have done a lot behind Zoom. It's sort of phenomenal. So we kept this organization on track and brought in a new director. So congratulations to this board and the staff team. Okay, anything else on that, Jeff, for now?
No, I don't think so. Thanks again. Looking forward to seeing at least some of you in person next month. But again, we'll just continue to play it by ear as we move forward.
Yeah, and Carolyn, can you make sure to pass that on to Robin? Because it'd be great to see some of our local peeps, at least, if you have time. So. Okay, great. So then let's move on to public comment. I don't know that we have any public comment. Dan, help me out. Do we have anyone signed in or?
Nobody that's not identified previously is in the queue. So
okay, and no written communications that we should know about.
We've received nothing as far as I am aware of on the item.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. So that takes us to our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions, comments, or polls? Okay, hearing none. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So that takes us to our public hearing for the rule update for 1.1 and 1.11 and 1.12 federal regulation adoption. And I believe we're going to Robert.
I actually will be doing.
Oh,
this in
sorry,
place of
Lauren.
Robert.
I just
No, you're
did
good.
that naturally. I didn't even look. So.
You're good. Yeah. So Robert has usually done these in years past. He's trying to pass the torch on to me. So Robert, as I said, feel free to chime in if you have anything to add. But so this is a very routine, for those of you who have been here for the board for a while, you've seen this year after year. It's a very routine update to our rules. I see it as just some general rule housekeeping. I think it was in your packet, but in case you don't have it, let me know and I can share my screen. We're basically just changing rule 1.11 is our federal regulation reference date to reference.
Lauren, why don't you go ahead and
2022.
share, sorry to interrupt. Why don't you go ahead and share your screen just so that folks have it up in front of them?
Okay, sure.
If you can.
Let's see. You guys see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So ORCAA rule 1.11, you'll see, I can make that a little bit bigger.
Thank you.
Where it says, used to say July 1st, 2021, it's now going to say 2022, and state regulation reference date where it says July 21st, 2021, changing that to 2022. Like I said, very routine update to get the most recent regulations referenced in our local regs. Just as a reminder, I believe in the June board meeting, I was not there, but the board approved us moving forward with filing the CR 102 to do this rule update. So that means in years past, what we typically would have to do is come to the board and say, hey, we'd like permission to file this piece of paperwork with the Washington State Register saying we intend to do the rule update. And the board would say, yeah, go ahead. And then we'd move on, put in the CR 102, come back to the board and do what we're doing now and say, hey, we're about to do this rule update. Does the board approve it? So in June, we skipped that first step of asking permission for the intent to file the CR 102. And now we just come to the board and do this public hearing that says, do we have permission to move forward with these changes and still do the public comment process and all that? So
Yep. So essentially in June, the board said, okay, that in the future, I mean, we don't need to come with the approval step, that basically because of this, we see this as a very administrative change. And so basically the board said, yes, every year you can move forward with filing the paperwork with the code revisor and making this approval, with this, making this update without coming to you in June like we did this year. So.
does anyone have any questions about that or the rule change itself or anything else?
Lauren, you want to say something, just a quick, say something about why this is important and why we do this every year? Because I know that's something that Jim and I talked about. It's like, well, I don't know, it seems like a very administrative thing. Is it something that we really need to do? So can you just say a little bit about why this is important to do?
Yes, so like I said, I see this as general good housekeeping of our rules. It makes sure that we have the most current up-to-date rules referenced in our rules so that we're implementing and enforcing on if there's any changes that occurred in these state or federal regulations, that we have those changes incorporated by or adopted by reference into our regulations.
Okay, good reminder.
Great, thank you.
Any questions? Okay, so I believe I'm required to have a public hearing at this point. And so I'm going to open the public hearing and ask if there is any public comment. Dan, anything you've received or anything in the waiting room?
No public comment received by me and nothing in our waiting room or active queue.
Anything from any other staff? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. The public hearing is closed. And then I believe I'll be asking now for a motion to approve the presented changes to ORCAA 1.11 Federal Regulation Reference Date and ORCAA Rule 1.12 State Regulation Reference Date. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, or 2 seconds, to change 2 digits in our rules. Any further comment? All in favor say aye.
It's a heavy load to carry.
I
It's
know,
an awful
right?
heavy load to carry, and you're expecting a lot of us.
How much did 2 numbers cost the taxpayers? That's what I want to know. This is a little wild, but we'll keep doing it. Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lauren. Good job.
Thanks, Lauren.
Okay, so then that takes us to our director's reports. And now I'm going to go to Robert for compliance.
Good morning, all. Welcome. You have to ignore my plant here, but so tab B4 is the compliance report for you this month. It's nice to be staffed back up again and getting some things done and caught back up. While you're perusing through those records, so I've been doing this for over 30 years now, and when I get a call that I haven't heard before, it's kind of noteworthy. And so I got asked a question last week. Unfortunately, didn't make the cutoff for this. It was Friday afternoon. So, but the person was concerned about semi-loads of styrofoam being stored on the neighbor's property and not covered. And he was concerned about the off-gassing of the styrofoam as it degraded in the sun. So both Dr. Hadley and other more Gooden have helped with the research on this topic. And I owe the gentleman a call back, but he was concerned about ozone and styrene being generated from the air quality standpoint, as well as fire safety and because of the storage and potential leaching of groundwater issues too. So we'll let Thurston County deal with that part of it. But the air side, it was the first time I've ever been asked that. So we believe we have an answer that it's probably a non-issue, but we are researching that question. So that was definitely original. So reviewing my reports there, is there anything that jumps out at you that I can try to answer any questions for you today?
Questions for Robert? I have some styrofoam to add to the pile if you can get me permission. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I can tell you that DART, one of our companies that is registered in Tumwater, accepts it, and they recycle.
Oh, good to know, because I got these foam coolers that are super big. Okay, cool. Oh, that's awesome.
Yes. They
So-
Well, one
prefer it
thing
bagged,
that-
I think.
So Robert, one thing that I could highlight if there are no questions is just that it's great to see some additional initials or some new initials under the inspectors. And again, we've got a couple great new inspectors, and we've got a great team here. So, and there, as you can see from the list of inspections coming up under their initials, which they're already out in the field doing what we need them to be doing. So.
Is this where complaints on a marijuana odor would fall, or is that in a different area?
They would show up under the complaint section. Starts on page toward the end anyhow.
9.
Page 9. Yeah.
Yeah, so there haven't been too many actually. They're down dramatically.
Well, I've got my second email, and he said that he's filed his second complaint in the Clary. Okay, it's the CDANG. Anyway, what can we do about odor from these farms that's making it difficult for neighbors? I know that up at Satsop Development Park, there's a farm up there that's in a building, and I go to church up there, and I have been by there dozens of times and never smelt a thing. So I know there is a way to deal with it, but not everybody is as good as that one.
So yes, indoor is preferred in the fact that then you do have ability to control emissions. But the regulations are not there to force that. So the one in McClary does a mixture, indoor and outdoor, and the odors are real. It does happen. Odors are generally transitory though as well, so it's difficult for us to enforce. As a nuisance violation in practice, we're not real successful with it, just bluntly. So it takes time to be able to collect enough evidence to present a case to the hearings board. So it is not, I have never tried to get their hopes up that we can resolve their problem. One of the other ones in Grays Harbor, we spent 2.5 to 3 years before we finally actually had a hearing and they upheld our findings. So it is not a quick process.
This is the right avenue for the neighbors that are complaining, right?
Correct, yes.
Odor. Okay.
Jim, I'd like to make a comment or
Go
maybe
ahead, John.
going back to the person who called about the styrofoam. I think that's astute of that man to be paying attention to that, realizing that, you know, it's a hazard, big hazard in the environment. And also that person sees ORCAA as an environmental steward, that's one of our things. And this DART plant has been in Tumwater for a long time, and we've been trying to keep getting out the news about where it is. It's 24 hours, you drive up and drop your stuff in. and it's easy to get to. And I was just wondering if somewhere on the website here for ORCAA, we could just mention that, if, you know, just put where people could take their styrofoam in this area. I mean, look at Jim, he knows everything about everything around here, and he didn't even know about it. So anyway, it was just a thought, just something that we could be a part of, helping to get that out of the environment. So
Good question, Joan. And I see a thumbs up from Dan, so he'll look at something. And I just suggest the Thurston County has this "Where do I find my" website that's got thousands of different recycling materials, and so maybe that's a place. I think that it's pretty inclusive of what's available in the region, but I would check that first.
okay, well, and we could refer people, I guess. So,
Totally.
yeah.
Good. Thank you, Joan. Randy?
Yeah, on the question of the marijuana facility, I just wanted to throw out a 2 cents. Yes, there are different ways to do it, and this won't help you for the moment, but in Mason County, we were one of the earliest ones to allow with regulations. And we specifically did not allow hoopies. We allowed no outside external commercial marijuana grows. We made sure for zoning, we handled it in our zoning that it had to be internal. So I'm just sharing that with you to help you with your situation. It won't help you with this one, but it'll help you with your future. And I really suggest that you do it, because one of the things that people don't pay attention to is all the solid waste that is left when they go bankrupt or don't work, and they just leave all that stuff, the hoopies and everything out there. It's something to consider.
Yeah, thank you, Randy. Is that something online I could pull up that's we could reference?
Oh yeah, it's just in our zoning. Call Kel and ask her to send you our zoning regulations on marijuana. We went through and we created many specific things.
Well, Grace Harbor, we're in the process of trying to fix ours, because when we've had a moratorium for a year and a half now on any new marijuana operations, just because they screwed up the zoning, and it was a allowed use in residential G5. Didn't even have to have a conditional use permit. It's like, no, we got to stop that. So now we're completely revising everything, and most areas will be conditional use, but it will not be allowed in a residential at all.
Yeah. You know, for us, it was the moratorium that set me. I'm the one that wanted action to do it. It wasn't that I was pro marijuana, but because we had a moratorium on it back before it was truly legalized, in my little town of Belfair, I had 9 marijuana retail operations in Little Belfair, and they were threatening each other with guns. And there was another 6 to 9 looking to come in, because our idea of a moratorium meant we didn't do anything about it. We just kind of said it wasn't there. So by legalizing the medical marijuana at the time and put restrictions on it, I was able to get them away from, we had one right next door to a Montessori, and they were out back smoking pot all the time, going over the fence with the kids. I was back there, watched it. It was amazing. So sometimes you have to allow something to control it. So it sounds strange. Right. That's what we did in Mason County. So we had a real early start. I'd go through, if I were you, and steal everything you can from it, because we did a lot of work to get there, and we have very few problems with marijuana out here.
Thank you.
And Randy, the person that you mentioned is Kel Rowan.
Kel Rowan is the one that would be able to get you all of our codes and our zoning.
Good conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I'll just observe in the last several meetings, we've had quite a few of these conversations around like local government policy that has a nexus to air quality policy. And I haven't really seen it as clearly in my time on the board. And it'd be interesting to know if there's any air agencies that are helping compile some of that as technical assistance for local government. What are the things we should be doing in some of these spaces? We're not asking for more work from our staff at the moment, but it's an interesting conversation. So thanks for having it.
Yeah, well, certainly we've been working hard to reach out to. I mean, we met with Kel and her staff a few weeks ago, and I know Jill, we've met with Suresh, I think, in some of his team. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely see ORCAA as having a role to play in working with the municipalities around whether it's on a lot of these issues, because again, a lot of these things are better done through zoning, land use, other regulations, as opposed to but by the time ORCAA gets involved, typically there's sometimes little that can be done.
Right.
Yeah, it'd be
So-
better to head it off at the pass if we can.
Yeah.
Exactly. So always open to hearing from you all about how we can strengthen those relationships and work more closely with the folks on the county and the cities to do the work.
And then pressure the state to keep those marijuana revenues at home in the local government. Okay, I'm going to keep us
Good
moving.
luck on that one.
I'm going to keep us moving to the engineering report. Mark.
Good morning. Hey, not to extend that topic out too far, but there was a time when we did work more closely with the marijuana facilities and upfront prior to them being established. And we came out with a good set of recommendations that I think is pretty long-lived, meaning I think it's still applicable today. First and foremost is, yes, cite them as remotely as possible, but we do have some pretty good recommendations for how to control emissions of those facilities. And yes, if they're indoors, then you've got a means to capture all the odors and send it through activated carbon. That's pretty much the best practice, is to exhaust those buildings through activated carbon filters. And I know we have a real big facility in Lacey that's indoors, and I don't recall hearing much about them. So I think that they're doing a great job. So for what it's worth, we could maybe, I'll send those to Jeff and he could decide whether or not to forward them to the board. But at the time they went through the board, and we did hand them out.
Sure.
So-
Yeah. Thanks for referencing that, Mark. I can certainly follow up, send those out to the board to the extent to which it would be of interest. And again, you could pass those along to your teams.
That would be
Or
great.
whoever.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so for the engineering report, for the month of August, the engineering time has been really dominated by inspections, and I was just looking over Robert's list. So Robert already went over that, but there's been quite a few inspections, especially of the major facilities that we regulate. So those are the facilities that are subject to an air operating permit and emit over 100 tons of a single regulated pollutant. So we typically try to get those inspections done when the weather's good. And we got quite a few of them done in August and early September. So time with the engineers has been dominated by those activities. We certainly have permits in-house though, and tab 5 lists all those permits. And so if you have any questions on any of those, you can ask me now or ask me later. There's not really any that I want to highlight at this time, except to mention to the board that we've, in addition to doing a lot of inspections, we've been doing a lot of hand holding, and particularly with proposed wood products facilities on the Olympic Peninsula. So Jefferson, Clallam counties in particular, and there's been quite a few proposed facilities out there that have been talked about, and we've reached out and made contacts with the project proponents. That seems to have filtered down to 2 proposed facilities. One of them is goes by the acronym SGTM. It shows up on the last page of the list. We have an application in from them, and they're really doing a great job. They've hired an environmental consultant. This person has worked with ORCAA before and has submitted applications. So we have an application in-house, and that's being worked on. The assigned engineer there is Aaron Manley. He's doing a great job working with that consultant to further refine that application. So hopefully we'll get an approved new mill. That one is located in the city of Beaver. Washington. The other facility that's proposed out there, Spencer Forest Products, we've been out there twice to just see what's going on. And we've talked with the project proponents, and Jeff has actually written a few letters to encourage them to submit an application sooner rather than later. So we're working with them as well. So I just wanted to mention there's been, for the months of July, August, and September, there's been quite a bit of time spent assisting these businesses in submitting their permit applications. So wanted to mention that to the board, and I'll close with that. And if you have any questions regarding any of the details of these cases that show up on the list, let me know. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Mark. Questions for Mark? Mark, I'm just curious. It seems like there's, you know, you have a pretty regular flow of generators, and I'm wondering, are you hearing anything from your generator sources around whether commercial battery backup systems are coming into play as a more viable option for commercial buildings? Just curious from a, you know, just like our wood stove program, it would make sense to try to move people towards the electric version if possible.
Yeah, that's a good question. I have not had any inquiries personally, but for certain cases, I would imagine, yes, the load is such that that new technology could handle it. For other cases, you know, when you got to operate like a wastewater treatment plant,
Right.
I think that, you know, your 1.2 megawatt generator is your only option there.
Big load, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, so it is something, it's something that, thanks for bringing that up. We'll pay more attention to those options for lighter load situations.
Good, yeah, and I was just thinking that, you know, if the technology is there for small sources, you know, I'm thinking like these pumps are really light load, some of them. But what, you know, would it be within our power to ask, you know, maybe not a mandate, but ask that it be considered prior to applying for a generator permit?
Yeah, that's we certainly can. Whether we have authority to do that is a little bit questionable, because there's like this overarching guideline that has been told to me, where we can't change the project description. So like, for example, if they want to generate electricity and they've got the choice of putting in a combined cycle gas-fired power plant or a biomass-fired steam turbine cycle, we don't have authority to say no, or a nuclear plant. We don't have the authority to say no, put in your nuclear plant.
Okay.
That should happen during the SEPA process, when alternatives are considered.
That makes sense. I appreciate that description.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, another Cooper rabbit hole. Thank you, everyone. Okay, with that, we're going to move to Odell. She has some pictures, I think.
Hey, is my microphone working?
Yes, very well.
Oh, good. Sorry, the Teams and Zoom like to fight over my camera and my microphone. So yeah, I just got back from vacation earlier this week and haven't had time to process the data from August. So you are going to get that next month. It'll be a double month update. Instead, I'm just going to talk a little bit about our recent smoke episode. I think people are interested in that. So I'm going to share screen. Where's my share screen? Oh, there it is. Okay. So can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay. So I flew back from a conference I went to in Pittsburgh in August, 3 days. And on the way back, we flew over the White River Fire, which is burning just north of Lake Wenatchee. and I got this shot out the window of the airplane. So that is what a wildfire can look like up in the mountains, obviously in steep terrain, hard to reach, and you'll often hear that they are just letting it burn, and that is why. It's a very good picture of why. So I was back for 2 days, and then I left again for vacation to go up through British Columbia I was gone for 8 days. I returned to I returned home on last Thursday to smoke coming into the area. So before I show pictures, I just want to give a shout out to Lauren and Dan for filling in for me and doing the forecasting and keeping the public informed about upcoming smoke events. So this is a satellite shot of Washington State on September 8th. And as you can see, we're still clear air, everything looks great, but starting up around us, you can see several fires that are emitting a lot of smoke into the atmosphere. This one up here on our border is the Chilliwack Fire Complex. So that was September 8th, but we had high winds and it was hot and it was dry. So then you can see on the 9th, we had some more fires start. This here is the Goat Rocks fire that shut down Highway 2 going over to Eastern Washington for a few days. And so that one blew up overnight. And then you can see up here the beginning of the Gold Bar, what is the Bolt Creek fire that was causing evacuations in Index. And then these easterly winds are just taking all this smoke and pouring it into the region. Down here in the south, you can see a little bit of some smoke coming in from an Oregon fire, and you'll see that on the next shot. I kind of moved out. So this is September 10th, and it just really blew up. High winds just really caused these fires. And now you can see that Bolt Creek fire that we've been hearing about on the news just really blew up overnight, and it's just pouring a ton of smoke into the region. Still, Olympia, not too bad, and most of the peninsula going into the moderate. And so on September, by the afternoon of September 10th, you can really see that the entire West Coast is just covered in smoke. One thing I want to point out here is with these satellite pictures, it looks really bad over Olympia and South Sound. And it was pretty bad, but most of the smoke was at elevation. So our numbers stayed in the yellow and orange, and we didn't actually see the red and purple numbers that we see over in Eastern Washington over the weekend and at the beginning part of this week. So even though this looks really bad for us, it could have been much worse. Most of the smoke stayed aloft. And so then on September 11th, which was Sunday, we see remnants from a hurricane down south actually dumped some clouds and showers into our region and really helped clear out the smoke a little bit earlier than we were expecting, at least for the peninsula. So although Seattle and Bellingham, they stayed real smoky, you can see this kind of wall of clouds and this weak system moving through that really helped clear out our region a little bit earlier. We were still moderate, but it was low moderate, almost good. So just that is what I have. And then this was on Monday when I came into work. This is from the purple air with the LRAPA conversion applied. And you can really see that mark down the middle of the Cascades where Eastern Washington was in red and purple and most of Western Washington was still yellow. And then it just continued to clear out for the rest of the week. So for the next several days, at least, I don't see any problems. But that of course depends on what the fires do. We do see some northerlies coming in later this weekend, but for the most part, I think we're going to get enough of westerly and coastal winds that it'll keep us cleared out. And I'm not forecasting any problems yet. So that is what I have. And I think Dan is going to talk more about his efforts on public outreach, which were awesome. And one other thing I just want to throw in there. We've been Jeff wanted me to update you on some work that we're doing over at the Mountain View monitoring site. Our new maintenance person, Dave Nelson, not Dan, but Dave Nelson, has done a phenomenal job over there in increasing the support of our railing around the structure and doing some maintenance on that monitoring building. So really happy with that work that he's done over there, and just wanted to give him a shout out as well. And that is all I have.
And that's the little shack in Lacey. Just when you say Mountain View for context.
Yeah, I mean, little shack. It's a nice
Come on,
monitoring
Jim.
shelter.
It's a nice shelter.
Come on.
Sorry.
It was a shack before Dave got hold of it, but now it's a very nice. It's a tiny home for our monitors.
Nice. There you go. That's a good description. I know it's been it's had some issues over the years, so it's good to hear it getting those improvements. That's awesome. Any questions for Odell?
Quick note for you, Jim. That shack was built by 2 ORCAA employees back in the day. I was one of them.
Right on. Yeah, something about working out a class there, huh? Okay.
It's that shack has served the agency and the public well as a home for our monitors. And again, it's not just ORCAA that uses it. It's very convenient for ecology. They often site monitors there. So it's a great location.
That's cool. Hopefully we're charging commercial lease rates.
It's really more of a exchange of favors.
Exactly.
Right
In
on.
kind.
In kind, that's right. It's in kind help.
Anything else for Odell? Carolyn.
I was going to quip to Jim that, in Lacey, we call those accessory dwelling units.
Okay. Well, no one lives there except for the monitors, but.
Great. Thank you, Odell. So let's keep going right into Dan.
Yeah, so as Odell mentioned, we did get in front of the smoke event, had a fortunate concurrence of events in that after 2 years of hard fighting and negotiations, Nextdoor, social media service, finally accepted public agencies as a viable group to be able to post and share with their communities that they serve. So like I said, we fought 2 years to get to Nextdoor. If people aren't familiar with Nextdoor, a brief overview is it's a social media website, but it's one where as a resident, you can sign up, put in your address, and you're joined to your neighborhood. So they break down communities by neighborhoods. You can select other neighborhoods, and you get any posts will show up on your feed. You don't have to subscribe to or follow individuals or anybody within your neighborhood that posts. It'll show up on your feed. So we were able to finally get them to say, yeah, not just emergency services, fire and police should be allowed to post as public agencies. Any public service, especially health and environmental agencies, should. So we've got registered with them in late August. Got all 6 counties involved. So our social media presence, and again, we don't need to get people to find us and follow us. Our message goes out to everybody that's on the platform within our jurisdiction. So we jumped up to about 150,000 subscribers right off the bat. Our first, and I'm going to share my screen so you can see what Nextdoor looks like. And then we'll share some of our website stuff too. So let me make sure I get the right thing here. So that's Nextdoor. That's our page. You can see here's our first post, basically just saying, hello, we're new to Nextdoor. Had 31,000 impressions, over 340 interactions. We did have the discussion shut down by Nextdoor because, as so many things these days, a lot of the discussion was complimentary and talking about ORCAA, and we responded and talked about what we do, and then it devolved into discussions of homeless encampments and smoke and the whole social issues there. And there was a lot of flagged inappropriate comments, and Nextdoor said, that's it. So as with any social media, there's lots of monitoring. Again, we posted when we were at Harbor Days. So again, just a reminder, I think we talked last month that we were going to be at Harbor Days. We had a great event there with all of our new compliance staff came out and spent some time in the booth interacting with the public. And again, great almost 15,000 impressions of that. So people were aware and knew about it. But Nextdoor is a great tool for us. I think it's going to be really helpful. Just as an, and so we did talk about the wildfire smoke, to get back on point there. So Thursday, before we saw the smoke, we posted saying we could have impacts this weekend, be prepared, had almost 30,000 impressions again. So people were seeing it and making comments saying, let's be prepared, let's be fire safe. And then we followed that up early Saturday morning. We posted again saying, we do have smoke. Here's the things you can do to prevent impacts to you. Here's the DOH links. So we could have all the details there and have an easy way to reach a large number of people throughout our jurisdiction. And if we want to target just an individual county with messages, we can do that too through this platform. So we can select all 6 counties. If it's something only occurring in Clallam and Jefferson, we can select just those counties and whatnot. So I think it's going to be a really successful tool for us. Just to let you know about that, I, at the start of this meeting, had posted about our wood stove recycling award on Nextdoor. Already have 1 application for approval for a wood stove removal. So that's how much reach we have. So that's Nextdoor. That's the wildfire stuff. Again, we had some great outreach and good interaction with people. But what I really wanted to share, what I'm most excited about, is our work on our new website. So you get to get a sneak peek at what we're looking at for the future. Our contractor, the Rhizome Collaborative, has been doing fantastic work. A lot going into this. We actually had a slight amendment and added some extra work. So our database integration is now more thorough. So when people fill out forms, it'll feed directly into our database instead of having to have staff take the form data from the website, print it out, and re-enter it into our other database. So we'll have that integration. But this is what the page is going to look like. We will have language translation services, so people will be able to select their language if they aren't English speakers as their primary. Be able to select some of the more common things, and we can change these 4 or 5 buttons seasonally as needed. So if we want to get a burn permit, but during the summer burn ban, we can take that away and put, do you want to know how to deal with wildfire smoke, and have some other things. So we'll have our mission, we'll have burn ban status, so people will be able to see that right up front. And then we'll be doing more posting of news as well as feature stories, and create more of a newsletter feel to some of the web page. So that's, and then for the air quality stuff, the good news is Rhizome is able to capture our air quality data from EPA's Air Now site. So our current site, the data is all streamed to Department of Ecology, which has such aggressive firewalls and protections. We can't get access to that to our website. So our current website uses iframes to essentially embed the Department of Ecology website into the pages on our site. In the new design, we're going to have our own graphics, our own data presented here. People will have a drop-down menu. They'll be able to select their county. The site will drop a cookie, so you can have that as your default. So if you're in Thurston County, you don't have to select it every time. It'll remember that that was your default. And then you can just go to the map at the bottom of the page, click on any of our monitoring devices, and get a pull-up. You can hit see details and have a data drawer slide out and get more information on the various things. So still preliminary designs, some of the news and notices. So we'll have more. You can see the news we posted over this weekend. They've already integrated into the design just to give some feedback. And then if you want to see the specific stories, that's what we're looking at. So, and again, they'll integrate some of our social media stuff. That's our Facebook page. So there'll be more integration throughout, easier reach for people. The top bar, oh, and I'll show you, it'll be fully ADA accessible, also fully mobile accessible. So that's what the mobile platform will look like. Again, that's go to the menu, you'll see the full menu again and be able to pull that up. Close out the menu, you'll see today's air quality, as well as then the other stuff you have on the laptop or the desktop browser form. So pretty cool work they're doing. Again, we've got a team of 6 or 7 people working on this pretty diligently. So they're doing great work for us, and we're all really excited to see this come together. So we have a good, strong team here in the office working on our side too, to make sure it's going to be useful for our compliance team, our front office people that deal with the public, and then making sure the public themselves will be able to make good use of it. So those are the big things. Oh, and in your board packet, you also saw working again with our new compliance team, especially Bryson, who has really strong asbestos background. We developed an updated mailer sent out to all of the general contractors and registered building people throughout our jurisdiction. I think we sent just under 600 mailers out to contractors and builders on our asbestos notification processes and how they should go about making sure they stay on top of things and stay within the laws and safe when dealing with asbestos projects.
So Dan, actually, before you, if you could put the website back up, I just wanted to also mention that we've done a refresh, as folks might have noticed, a refresh on the logo.
Oh yeah. So we do have, one thing they looked at was trying to integrate it and make it a cleaner, more modern look. So it's the same logo, just cleaned up with a new, cleaner font, something that will imprint and represent better, and cleaner, bolder lines on the logo itself. And then changing the color slightly so that they're ADA accessible for readers, for the visually impaired and others. It'll show up better, and those are better mobile friendly as well, where you may have limited color options. So all in all, it's a lot of work. One of the good news for us is that a lot of that ADA work and design elements, they worked through that process, and same with the air quality stuff. A lot of the back end work was already done, because this is the same agency that did work for the Spokane Regional Clean Air Agency. And so we're benefiting from what Spokane paid for a couple of years ago. So you gotta like that.
Yeah.
Now, as Dan mentioned, we're really excited. It's primarily Dan and Debbie and I that are working, but Jennifer has been involved because of the database tie, and certainly Chris has been involved because of the needing to make sure that our IT backends are working and that the website's talking to our database and so on. But just really excited with where this is going, and we'll be, again, when roughly we'll be looking at launching this new site in February. So very excited about that.
Awesome. Thanks for the preview. It looks beautiful, especially those graphics for the air quality. That's so much better than the Windows 2.1 that we get out of the Department of Ecology.
Yeah, and that's something we've always struggled with. There was trying to get through the ecology firewall in years past and get that data so we could create our own graphics. I actually spent a few nights here in the office at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, calling the web designers in Israel, which was the team that Ecology had hired at the time doing that work. So, and very little satisfaction, as you can tell. We were still using today the iframes option because we just could not get a good stream of data.
Yeah, it's very Web 1.0. So great.
Dan,
go ahead, Joan.
Yeah, I just wanted to compliment Dan on his artisticness. I like the pictures that you always choose. They seem to add to the illustrative things you're trying to, communicate, or they are just the right pictures to make me feel like I have been brought into the story or into the whole thing, like I could get my feet wet at the edge of the ocean or something. So I just want to compliment you on not only all the information and technical things you do, but you're doing it very well and very artistically. And I love it. I feel like a kid looking,
I appreciate
through,
that.
Yeah, looking through my picture book or something. So keep it up. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So I was just gonna, one hope that I have from the website is that when we're posting information, we have a better social media connection, because I was just looking back to the Facebook posts over the weekend, and the website posts don't show any information. They don't even have the title of the article, and versus your next door shares are beautiful. So that contrast is significant to me, and especially in those kinds of events, I wish that we were creating our own social content. And I know we're strapped for resources. And then I just want to say, the work is beautiful, and those impressions are awesome. Nextdoor is toxic as hell, and I just want to caution our staff to not get sucked into that platform at all costs, because it's where everyone that could post for free before newspapers had firewalls went, and it's not healthy. And so I just provide a cautionary tale. Well, it's nice to see a positive use of that platform. So
Thanks, Jim. On the one thing, just because this kind of ties into a conversation we had at the Washington Air Directors meeting yesterday about so that this is a group with Department of Ecology and the other local airs. We meet every couple months, and we had a discussion yesterday about agencies and social media, and so talked about how, because again, each agency separately we've got communications managers, but we don't have, but there's not a real strong focus on social media, and everybody recognizes that social media is a very different beast than traditional media. And so Dan suggested, and we had some conversations about kind of re-energizing our Northwest Air Communicators group, which is a group that again the board might have heard about before. How they, it's the mechanism for the agencies working together to pool resources. And again, because we have all of the locals will have similar messaging, so there's some opportunities to again get to pool our resources and do some common campaigns.
That's awesome. So, that's very cool. Well, and I would say I read the other day that more people get their news in the United States from TikTok than any other source. So next month we'll look to see Jeff's first TikTok video, Dan.
Yeah, we actually discussed that at that meeting yesterday, and I suggested we have the air directors dance team. So
yeah, right.
And there was some hesitation on our part.
No, why?
So we'll see.
Awesome.
But yeah, so okay.
Yeah, that resource sharing I think is key, because I think my expectations are higher than our agency can actually pull off, and so having that resource to share, because you're right, it's a lot of really common storytelling. So thanks for helping me with that, Jeff. Joan, you leaned in before we move to Jeff's report. Did you have something? No. Okay.
Thanks.
Cool. Okay. Thank you, Dan. Beautiful work. Can't wait to go live. Okay. We'll go to Greg for his report. Or sorry, Jeff. Greg is the vice chair. Jeff.
All right. Thanks, Jim. So yeah, so as can't remember, I think, well, don't know if it was mentioned earlier, but so Lynn is out. She's on vacation for much of this week, and so she's not here to give her usual administrative management update. So the one thing I'll mention, of course, we had conversation about the budget. So she would have talked about that earlier, but the one thing I'll mention is we do still have vacant space here in the building. It's one of our larger spaces, second floor, 935 square feet. I just put a link to it. It's on our website, and just put a link in the chat. Again, if you know anybody or know any businesses or have any ideas about how to help us get the word out, it's a great space, and we are looking to fill it. So other things I'll mention, hiring. So again, it was already talked about. We've brought on a couple new inspectors. The hiring we're focused on now is a records clerk position. It was posted on the website last week and got pushed out to LinkedIn and a variety of other job posting sites. Again, this is a position that you approved as part of the fiscal year 2023 budget, position to help us get caught up on managing our agency records, also provide some front office support, and also some assistance to Lynn on some of the things that she does. And so if you know anybody with some records, public disclosure experience that's looking to make a change and work for a small, awesome agency, please, actually, I'll put that link in the agenda, or I'm in the chat as well. Give me a sec. And just actually, I was talking with Debbie. We actually got in the past earlier this week, we got a big public disclosure request for a facility that used to be in Lacey, but is no longer there. But so we're having to go back through lots of records, do a lot of scanning. And so it's just a good reminder about the importance of this new records position. And again, excited to be bringing on another person to be helping with that aspect of the work that the agency does. So other HR related things, I am making progress in the salary survey. That's something that we've talked about. I've selected the firm that I want to use. It's called Compensation Connections. They are currently working, and I got their name from Yakima Regional Clean Air Agency, and they're also working with Yakima County. Turns out they've also done a lot of work with Puget Sound Clean Air, and so they're very familiar with the work of local clean air agencies. So working with Lynn to put that contract in place, and again, hoping in the coming weeks to get that all signed. And so I'm hoping in October to be able to report that the contract has been signed and the work is underway. Also working with the managers on getting our job descriptions all up to date and ready to share, because of course that'll be an important part of the input that we provide to this firm to evaluate our positions relative to other local airs. Going to be looking at state government, other local government here in the Olympia area as well. And so obviously the comparables will be really important, but excited about getting that work underway.
Who did we end up with?
The firm,
Yeah.
They're called Compensation Connections.
Okay. Okay. I was just wondering what was Cabot Dow, because boy, they were incredible. All right. Thank you.
I'm sorry. What was the name of the firm, Randy? I couldn't hear you.
Cabot Dow.
Cabot Dow. Okay. Well, I did have conversations with a number of other firms that have worked with other local air agencies, but I liked, yeah. So because of Compensation Connections work with local airs and just the conversations I've had. Let's say I'm also looking at including in the contract some ad hoc HR support, because again, as a small agency, there's some things that I would like to be able to I would like some HR support. And so looking at adding that into the contract as well. Let's see, moving on.
Carolina has a question, Jeff.
Okay, yes, Carolina.
Yes, my question's in regards to the timing issue. I know we discussed this last time, but just with having a company kind of chosen clear, have they given you timelines on how long it's going to take and when can we start seeing some results back?
Yep, so they expect it to take about 3 months. So they're hoping, because the timeline that Shannon, one of the principals that I talked to, so that'll take about 3 months to do their work. And I talked about wanting to have information to fold into our fiscal year 24 budget process early next year. So So the extent to which we can do that, and again, some of the things we might be able to fold into the next budget year, other things might take a little bit longer, depending upon what we hear back from them. But that's rough timing. Again, they're saying roughly 3 months, and so again, hoping to have the contract signed, and so that 3-month clock will be starting, you know, sometime maybe early October kind of time frame.
Thank you.
Sure.
My next question, is there maybe a possibility that we can set aside like an allotment on the budget, right? Kind of an expectation of this report. That way we don't have to wait until next year or do an amendment. Is that a possibility?
Yes, I mean, I think so. I mean, we could, and I can talk to Lynn about that, exactly how that would work. I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, not knowing what the results are going to be, but we could certainly think about, well, think about some contingencies, some eventualities, and so think about how we might set some money aside. So yeah, that's certainly something I can talk to Lynn about. And again, maybe we can talk about it at with the finance committee.
Thank you.
I think if there's positions that are like egregiously out of range, you know, maybe we would move. You know, I could see a scenario, but I don't think that we're really there. But I think it's a good question, Carolina. So thanks for bringing it up. When we did this the last time, and trying to think if maybe Randy and I are the only one. Oh, Joan and Randy and I are the ones that were here for that. Is that it took 3 years to fully implement it because of cash. Like we didn't have the resources to be able to pull it off all in one fiscal year. So.
Yeah, and that was 2014, so it's been a while since that's been done. But again, I know, I mean, ORCAA has a process of keeping salaries up to date year to year, whereas if salaries have been frozen, then had been frozen, then I'd have more worries about, okay, we've got a lot of catch up to do. But so that my guess is there will be some adjustments, but and so we'll just have to see what the consultant comes back with and what their recommendations are. But I'm definitely going to be working with them to make sure that they're preparing it so that it's not just they're giving us a bunch of data, but they're also giving us implementation plans and having some suggestions about how we then can implement this. And of course, we'll be sharing not just the job descriptions on our org chart, but our salary schedule and all of that. So.
Anything else, Jeff?
Not on that. Let's see. I was just going to give an update on recreational burning. So that's, of course, conversations in Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater. So myself and Dan primarily have been the ones moving that forward. Conversations, actually, I met just earlier this week with Chief Carson and a few others from Olympia Fire Department. Actually, I've got a meeting tomorrow with Chief Hurley from Tumwater, just to give them updates. We've again met with Lacey Fire Department, talked about this with city managers from the 3 cities. Basically, the reaction has been all supportive. Again, once we answer the questions about, well, why are we doing this? Why was it in place to begin with? Everyone is supportive, again, everyone understands that the communication challenges that this brings, and that this will simplify our messaging around it. And so, Jim, I know last month you asked Dan to put together a figure that shows the 3 layers of restrictions within Thurston County about sort of what's out in the county, what do we have in the UGAs, and then what is it within the cities. And so Dan and I have been working with that, and we'll be able to share that here soon, and certainly with subcommittee, because I know you put together a subcommittee of the board, and we'll be talking about best timing to get that subcommittee together as well. One of the other developments in the past month is that I've been having conversations with the EPA, and it's not going to be quite as simple as we had initially hoped, but because ORCAA's rules, it has been incorporated into the state implementation plan. There's going to be a process to work with the EPA to get basically to work with them. I'm not going to say approval, but we're working with the EPA to make sure we've got the information that they're asking for. they want to make sure, and again, this part, the ban on recreational fires, was always a very small part of getting the area back into attainment, because again, it was a home heating issue in the wintertime. That's not when people are out having these recreational fires, but we're having to make some arguments about or make some put some information together, some quantitative information about that with the EPA. So don't think that's going to significantly, or hopefully it's not going to significantly alter our time frame, but that is an additional piece that we're having to work on. Let's see, are there any questions on that before I move on? A couple other last things. Nope, not seeing anything. So I mentioned earlier the Washington Air Qualities Management Group meeting yesterday, so that we had, again, the other local airs get together. It's really helpful. Talked about a lot of interesting things, and again, there's a lot of commonality, obviously, between the 7 local airs and Department of Ecology. The only thing I'll mention additionally is that Yakima Regional Clean Air Agency has a new executive director. They've been without for a long time, so his name is Mark Thornsbury from Oregon, and he started on Monday. So he's brand new, but he was at the meeting via Zoom yesterday. So looking forward to working with the new executive director from the Yakima Clean Air Agency. And again, with me being relatively new, with Chrissy Cooley, the new executive director at Puget Sound, and Mark at Yakima, there's a lot of new blood amongst the local airs. And the last thing I'll mention, just in terms of my director updates, is just we are working a number of complicated ongoing compliance issues with a few of our major sources. And so that's taking quite a bit of time from the engineering side, as well as the compliance side, and my time. And we're working with our attorneys as needed. So just wanted to let you know about that. And so I'll stop there unless there's any questions.
I just wanted to say that with all of you new, excited, energized directors, I don't think it's new blood. I think we've got the new fresh breezes, clean air blowing through everything. So
there you go.
Okay, I'll update my metaphor.
Yeah. Okay.
That's awesome. Any other questions or comments for Jeff? Okay, thank you, sir. Good report. So anything for the good of the order? Okay, so we're gonna move on to our executive session. Actually, let me ask Jeff Meyer, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, what do you think?
I think 10 minutes is probably good.
Okay.
And I don't anticipate action afterwards.
Okay, great. So pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, the ORCAA board will go into executive session to discuss current or pending litigation. And at this time, I'm going to ask Dan, and then we will return to the Zoom screen to adjourn the meeting in 10 minutes. And then so I'm going to ask Dan to move everyone except the board and the 2 Jeffs into the waiting room and make me a host as you exit. And then when we're done with executive session, I'll bring Dan and Debbie in to restart the recording and let us adjourn the meeting. Everyone okay with that? Okay, we'll just give Dan a minute.
And if staff would like to just sign off, they're welcome to do that as well. Except for Debbie, you can't sign off. And is that everybody? Jeff will stay in, correct?
Yes, I think so.
Yep.
So where's Jim? I will make you the host and you can put me away.
Okay, I am now the host.